have skeleton notes. That's what I spend a lot of my time. The planning's making these set of notes to kind of make this go faster and easier for us. So here we go. There's a few things I didn't talk about, so we're going to talk about them now. We're factoring by grouping 4-term polynomials. The only time we're going to do this for now is if there are 4 terms in our expression, and honestly that's what we're going to be doing for all of them. Everybody pays attention. Everybody follows along with me. I'm going to be cutting some of your homework problems off. Right now, you're doing the even problems, all of the even problems. But if we can keep everybody on task, everybody following along with me, I'll take some of them off. Fair enough? Everybody, nobody on their phone, nobody's music blaring, everybody writing what I'm writing. Okay?
Alright.
Alright, I like it. The first thing we need to look at is not all polynomials can be factored. Not all can be factored, so you're writing factored in there. I apologize if some of your blanks are not big enough for your size writing, but just make it work, alright? One of the things we didn't do in the examples I showed you, but sometimes there is going to be a greatest common factor that you can pull out at the very beginning, right? If you can pull a 2 out of everything at the very beginning before you start doing your factoring by grouping, you have to do that first. Does that make sense? Alright, so that's what we're going to do. We'll always pull out a GCF first if possible. So it's right in a little blank, GCF in the blank right there. Greatest common factor, exactly. Let me make sure I updated Shamari's attendance while I'm thinking about it. Yeah, come on up. Okay, the next sentence says it's helpful to put the polynomial in standard form, but most of the time it's easier to factor if it's in standard form. That remembers biggest degree to least degree, biggest exponent on a term to least or 0 exponent on a term. Alright? Every once in a while though, you will have to rearrange them to get it to factor. Probably not for what we do, but probably for us it's just going to be better to leave it. You're not helping me. Now, what does it mean to be factored completely? That's our next little line right here. To be factored completely, there has to be no common factors greater than 1. So at the end, if one of your binomials has a common factor of 2, Omar, do you need to go to the clinic? Are you sick? Then let's go to the clinic. Wasim, will you let him know I'm going to follow up to make sure he goes straight there?
Yeah, but we're getting missing your phone.
Aiden. Alright, go straight there. Clinic. Were you telling? Okay. Alright, so we're going to write the steps and factor this 4-term polynomial together. The first thing we're going to do, so it's 8w cubed plus 12w squared plus 10w plus 15. Each of those terms is 4 terms. All of those terms are separated by addition symbols. They could also be separated by subtraction symbols, but here these all happen to be addition. 4 terms. Make sense? Austin, is that you, buddy? You're going to turn that off. The whole thing. Just turn the whole thing off and we'll be good. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to group into 2 expressions. So the first blank here by number 1 is 2 expressions. Caleb.
Sorry.
That?
It was already there, sorry.
Oh, that was already there? Alright, so this is what we're talking about. It looks strange because there's a plus there, because remember, we're not separating it. These are not factors. These are just groups. So to the right of number 1, you're writing this, because that's what we're going to use to factor. another group. So what is the greatest common factor of this first group? Well, what's the greatest common factor of 8 and 12? 4. Good. What's the greatest common factor of w cubed and w squared?
2.
W squared, yes. So remember, the greatest number of w's they have in common, that's the greatest common factor. So 3 w's, w times w times w, 2 w's, w times w. So the greatest common factor for this first group is 4w squared. So you're writing that next to number 2 with a comma. Armand, you follow along? Get off my wall, buddy. Face forward, off my wall. Off my wall. Face, you gotta move this and put those long legs in the front. What's the greatest common factor of 10w plus 5? What's the greatest common factor of 10 and 5?
1.
5. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, there's not a w, so the greatest common factor of those two terms is just 5. We're going to skip some of the blanks for now and go down to number 3, and then we'll come back up to the other blanks. So number 3 says the blank, the sum of the two GCFs, is one of the binomial factors. So the sum of the two GCFs is one of the binomial factors. So we're at number 3, filling in the blank for number 3. Not there. Okay. You're going to be writing what we're writing, Omar. All right, and that would be 4w squared plus 5. That is our first binomial factor. So that's the first factor in our answer. The little stars above number 3, those are, sometimes these situations happen. Sometimes you'll see this and you need to know what to do. So if the first term of the group is negative, and typically that's going to be this one here, this middle one. If that term is negative, then we factor out a negative greatest common factor. So if that was negative 10w plus 5, we would have factored out a negative 5 instead of a positive 5. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And if a group doesn't have a greatest common factor, we're going to use 1. The greatest common factor is 1. So if it's 10w plus 7, there's not a greatest common factor. We use 1 there. Okay, so we're down to number 3. We have one of our binomial factors. Now we need the other one. So for number 4, we're going to divide the first two terms by the greatest common factor of the group. We could actually do either group, but we might as well do the first group. So we're going to do the first group, always divide the first group, the first two terms, by the greatest common factor that we found. So the greatest common factor of the first two terms is 4w squared. So we're going to take 8w cubed and divide it by the greatest common factor, 4w squared. There's a plus. Now we're going to take 12w squared and also divide it by 4w squared. We divide both those terms by the greatest common factor, by that factor that we pulled out to start with. Does that make sense, Aiden?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we get is 2w plus 3. This binomial is the second factor of the 4-term final binomial. Let's put parentheses around that one as well. So the final answer is 4w squared plus 5 times 2w plus 3. And we can check them by multiplying them together. I'm going to let you guys catch up with me. Jeremiah, I need you to sit up, buddy. Wake up. Sit up. multiply them and see if it's correct. So 4w squared plus 5 times 2w plus 3, 8w cubed plus 12w squared I wrote the wrong column right there. Did I? Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah. I'm right. I'm sorry. Had a brain senior moment. Put it that way. 10w plus 15. So, is that the same four-term polynomial we started with? This one right here is where I forgot to put the 5. Will you guys put a 1 there for the 15? When I rewrote it, I forgot the 1. Will you go back and make sure you have the right thing there? So by number 1, it should say 8w cubed plus 12w squared, parentheses, plus 10w plus 15. I left out the 1 when I typed it. Did you fix it? Yes, thank you. Okay. So we're going to do a couple more examples.
You scroll down.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta finish.
We're going to do a couple more examples, and then if everybody can get started, as long as everybody's working, like I said, I'll cut out some more problems from your homework. I think this is it. The check part? Yep. You do not have to check them all on your homework. I just want to show you that this is an option when you're taking a test. You want to make sure you got it right, especially if you have enough time. You can go back and check them. We need more time? We can come back. Can we come back to Paul? Okay. Alright, so what if we're factoring this one? We're going to use our steps. So, I think flip yours over on the back. First thing we're going to do, step 1 is we're going to make 2 groups. So what I usually do is just do it this way. You don't have to rewrite it if you don't want to. You can just group it. Okay? What's step 2 say to do? Good. Pull out the greatest common factor of each group. So this group, what's the greatest common factor of 6 and 16? 2. What's the greatest common factor of b cubed and b squared? Very good. So 2b squared. And now what's the greatest common factor of 21b and 56? 7. Very good. 7. Now, if this were negative, we'd pull out a negative 7. It doesn't matter that that one's negative. But this is the one. If this were a negative, and we're going to do one like that in a minute. So now we have the 2 greatest common factors. What's step 3 say? What does sum mean to do? Right. So, 2b squared plus 7. That's our first factor of our answer. So we're going to put our answer right here. This is going to be our final answer. We're going to put back up here. So now we're going to need another binomial here. That's the first one. What's step 4 say to do?
Divide the first 2 terms by the greatest
Okay.
common factor of the group.
Divide the first 2 terms. So 6b cubed minus 16b squared. We're going to divide that by 2b squared. So we're going to take 6b cubed plus 16b squared and divide both of those by 2b squared.
Which one do you want to do?
On the back page of your notes right here. Now what's 6 divided by 2?
3.
What's b cubed divided by b squared? B, right? Remember, if we have b times b times b, that's b cubed. Divided by b squared, b times b. These would cancel, right? Or you can subtract them. So 3b minus, what so our b's are gone. So this is our other binomial factor. So that is our answer. Looked like a lot when we were going over, right? Looked like a lot when we're writing the steps. If you will follow your steps, at first it will still seem like a lot, and then it will get a lot easier, a lot faster. Because we do the same thing every time. Now there are a few exceptions, or extra things you have to do. You guys caught up with me? What if the last two terms don't have a GCF? So let's go ahead and group them. What do our notes say to do if they don't have a GCF? By one of the stars. Very good. If it doesn't have a GCF, we're going to use 1. So let's first find the GCF, 25j cubed and 15j squared. Because step 1 is group them. Step 2 is find the GCF of each group. What's the greatest common factor of 25 and 15? What's the greatest common factor of j cubed and j squared?
J squared.
J squared. And now, 5j and 3. No greatest common factor. What we say we're going to use? 1. So our first, step 3 says, our first binomial factor is the sum of those two greatest common factors. So our first binomial factor in our answer is going to be 5j squared plus 1. We need another binomial factor. We're about to find that. How are we going to find that? Very good. Divide those first two terms by the GCF. And what I would do is just go back up to here and divide it here. In the last example, I rewrote it. You can rewrite it if you want. It's up to you. But you could also just go back up here and say, okay, I'm going to divide this by 5j squared and this by 5j squared. 25 divided by 5 is 5. J cubed divided by j squared is j. It's a plus. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And j squared divided by j squared is 1. So it's just 5j plus 3. So I kind of switched my order of things, kind of shortened it up for you. If you don't like it shortened like that, you can do the long way just like the steps are until you get more comfortable, or forever. It doesn't matter. Make sense, Jacob? Make sense, Caleb? Make sense, Sam? Make sense, Sydney? Shamari, I need you to pick your head up. Omar, I need you to pick your head up, buddy. Come on. I have to have a minimum of you at least being awake in here if at all possible.
Okay.
Okay? You can't learn anything if you're asleep. Jeremiah, you awake, buddy? You gotta be facing the screen, okay? All right. We're gonna keep going. Always pull out the greatest common factor first. So look at these 4 terms. Is there a greatest common factor in those 4 terms? What is it? 21? Nope. 21 is not a factor of 15, right? 5 is not a factor of 84. How about 3? 3. How about 3? 21 divided by 3 is 7. 84 divided by 3. I only know it's divisible by 3 because 8 plus 4 is 12, so I'll have to do that and we'll figure it out. 15 divided by 3 we know is 5, and 16 divided by 3 we know is 20. So let's go ahead and take that 3 out first. That means we're going to rewrite it. 3 times 7k cubed gives me 21k cubed. Minus, somebody help me, 84 divided by 3, what is that? 28. Alright, so 3 times 28k squared would be 84k squared. Plus 3 times 5k would be 15k. This is reviewed from our unit before the break. And then minus 3 times 20 will give me 60.
Huh?
3 times 20 is 60.
Oh, I thought it said 20.
This is 60. So 3 times 20 is 60. Does that make sense, Kimani? Alright, so now when we factor, we're actually going to have two binomial factors and also that greatest common factor. So our answer, I'm going to go ahead and let's put our answer, our spot for our answer, it's going to be 3 times 2 binomials. Does that make sense? We know 4-term polynomial is going to have 2 binomials, right? So now we've done step 1, let's go ahead and do step 1. And I'm going to rewrite this one because that's a lot right there. So I'm going to rewrite this 7k cubed, only the 4-term part, because I'm not doing anything with this anymore. Has to be part of my answer, but I'm done with it. So I'm going to rewrite 7k cubed minus 28k squared plus 5k minus 20. Now I'm going to group into 2 groups here. What do we do after we group it into 2 groups? What are your steps say to do, Tony? After we group into 2 groups, what do we do? Yes, pull out the greatest common factor of both groups. So the greatest common factor of this group is going to be 7 is the greatest common factor of 728 k squared, right? The greatest common factor of 5k and negative 20, 5. So that is our first binomial, the sum of those.
Is that a comma?
This is a comma, yeah. Yeah, it's a comma. We rearranged it. It's kind of messy there. Comma 5. So the sum of those is our first binomial factor. Now how do we find the second factor? We divide. What do we divide and what do we divide it by?
We divide 7k squared by 7k cubed minus 28k squared.
Perfect. Yep, we divide this by its greatest common factor. So here it's going to be divided by 7k squared divided by 7k squared. 7 divided by 7 is 1. K cubed divided by k squared is k. 1k is just k, right? That is the first term. It's minus, because this is minus here. That's 28 divided by 7. 4. What's k squared divided by k squared? Right, so that's just minus 4. So now this 4-term polynomial, because it had a greatest common factor to start with, actually has 3 factors, but one of them is just the greatest common factor. That make sense, Anaya? That make sense, Tyrese? So if there was not a greatest common factor, then it would just be the 2 binomials, right?
Yeah.
Okay. At the end, if we had not pulled out that greatest common factor, we would have noticed that at least one pair would have a greatest common factor, right? So we could pull it out then if we needed to. All right, any questions? And one more example. If the first term of the group is negative, the greatest common factor of that group should be negative. That means we're going to pull out, we're going to make it a negative. Whatever common factor it would have been, we just call it a negative. So let's go ahead. Step 1 is to do what? Step 1 is to do what? Group it. Step 2? Tony, what's step 2? Of both groups. Very good, very good. So the greatest common factor of this group is going to be 2d cubed, right? The greatest common factor of this, now this one's negative, The greatest common factor of this would be 2, but since it's negative, we're going to say -2. And this one actually has the greatest common factor of D for the variable. So that's going to be D. Does that make sense? So for our answer, we're going to take the sum of those. So our answer, binomial times binomial, the sum of these, but since this is a negative, we're going to write that as 2D cubed minus 2D. That's the same as plus and negative. Does that make sense, Sam? How do we find the last factor? Last binomial factor? We divide what?
D squared. I mean,
2D by the 4.
Yes, so we take these two terms and divide it by its greatest common factor. So do 2D cubed, 2D cubed. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. D to the 4th divided by D to the 3rd. D to the 1st. Very good. If you're still confused on that, remember D to the 4th just means there's 4 D's on top. And then D to the 3rd means there's 3 D's on bottom. You could subtract them or you could cancel them. Right, it's going to be 1 D. Plus, there's a plus there. 4 divided by 2 is 2. D cubed divided by D cubed is 1, so it's just plus 2. So there's a step for every single part of this. You do not have to get creative. You can literally just follow the steps. Literally. Alright, I'm going to go through and see. So right now I have you doing 18 problems. So let's see if we can cut some of them out, because you guys did a good job. Yeah, it would be the right column, but we weren't doing 37, 38, or we weren't doing 38. So let me see. Let's start with by cutting out one of the ones in the back. Let's cut out 32. So you can scratch off 32. And let's scratch off and a bunch of these like this. Let's scratch off 18. Put a line through 18. And let's put a line through 4. So we're down to 15 problems, is that right? We've cut out 3. How about we cut out one more? Let's cut out this one and this one look very similar. Let's cut out 20. So I think we're down to like 14. Okay? And as it turns out, they're due tomorrow at 7:30, but I can push the due date to Wednesday at 7:30 at this point. Yeah, we were never doing those. Yeah, we're not doing. Oh, actually, let me see. Actually, we're gonna. Oh, that's right. We could cut out. Let's do one of those, and then you don't have to worry about cutting that one out. Let's do 34 together, and then it'll be less. We are doing 34. We were doing 34 and 36, but let's do 34, and then you won't. That'll be one more we're cutting out. So it says find the expression for the possible dimensions of each regular prism. So the prism, to find the dimensions, the formula for the volume of a prism is length times width times height. So everybody's putting that on your paper for number 34. And you will be doing number 36 the same way. So number 34, the volume is 18D cubed plus 84D squared. So 18D cubed you're writing plus 84D squared plus 48D. The only way for us to get 3 terms from this 4-term polynomial. Oh, I lied. We're not doing either of those. Scratch them. We're not learning how to split the middle term yet. Scratch 34 and 36. We did things out of order, so we don't know how to do these yet. But we'll learn how to do this. So even more you don't have to do. Woohoo! So now what are we down to? How many problems?
12.
Nice. 12 problems doable. I'll bump your due dates to Wednesday at 7:30, but if you know your power is iffy sometimes, make sure you try to get it done tonight. Everybody clear? Otherwise, they need to be uploaded as soon as you get on campus on Wednesday. You guys watching the national championship game tonight?
Washington.
Who's favored? Washington or Michigan? Do we know? Washington's favored? Oh yeah, that's right. Michigan. Yeah, they were kind of iffy getting in. They got in because we didn't get in. Terrible.
We're trying to switch right now, but he's so high.
Exactly.
Well, that's how college improved that. They just care about
Crazy. That's the only reason you make it too.
Yeah.
They shooting it all the way.
Oh, I can cut off the recorder.